Are groceries eating your budget alive? Prices are still climbing, leaving many wondering how to feed their family and prep for the future without going broke. What if I told you that a well-stocked prepper pantry can actually save you money, even in today's economy? Stick around because I'm about to show you some of my best ways to cut your food costs so you can still build a stockpile, no matter how tight things get. Hey guys, it's Jera with Wicked Prepared. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something hitting us all hard, the skyrocketing costs of food. The economy's still a mess. Grocery prices have increased by 22.5% over the last 4 years, and we can feel it in our wallets. Families are stretched thin, with many barely scraping by. But here's the good news. Prepping doesn't have to drain your bank account. In fact, a solid prepper pantry can cut your grocery bills over time while giving you peace of mind. Problem is, when money's tight, stocking up can feel impossible. That's why I'm sharing practical ways to save on food and free up cash to build that pantry, because being prepared shouldn't be a luxury. Saving on food isn't just survival, it's investing in future security when prices spike or shortages hit. Remember, food is an investment, and more people than ever now believe it's the smartest investment you can make. We've got to save money and buy low. Let's break it down. My first tip for saving money on food is to keep a price book. This is your way to keep track of what the things you buy cost at the stores you have available to shop at, so you can compare prices as you shop and make sure you're not spending extra money unnecessarily for the things that you buy. In this day and age, you can keep a price book the old-fashioned way with pen and paper, like a notebook or a binder, or you can opt for something digital in your phone, like an app, a doc, or a spreadsheet. Do whatever works best for you. The way I prefer to set up my price tracker is with a line for each item that I might buy, and on that line I have spaces for the name of the item, the package size, and the price of the item at each different store that I could shop at. Most of us have several options, a couple of grocery stores, a Walmart, maybe a dollar store, an Aldi, warehouse clubs like Sam's Club, and so on and so forth. Don't forget online retailers like Amazon. I actually quite often can find the best prices on certain food items on Amazon. The best thing about this is with the technology we have at our fingertips today, it's very easy to do this. We don't have to drive all over town and use a lot of gas to find the prices at each store. We have these amazing things, our smartphones. Pretty much everyone has one today. I can open up my phone and use an app or a website to check the price of just about anything I could buy at just about any store I could shop at. I can use my phone to check prices at lots of different stores without even leaving my home. Or if I'm in a store shopping and I pick up an item, I can check right then and there. I can check the prices at other stores, on Amazon, on Sam's Club. A lot of times you open up the store's app and it's going to have a scan button right there to find that item super quickly. We can also often see if a store has something in stock, and that means we're not going to waste gas driving over to the store if they don't have what we need. And often we can even place a pickup order. Then you can be extra sure, even if their inventory system is a little out of whack. I don't ever pay extra for pickup, but if it's a free service they offer, then it can help us to be efficient and avoid those impulse buys walking through the store that can take a big bite out of our budget. But get a price book started and be diligent about keeping track of those prices so you never pay more for any item than you have to. So if you see a sale on something that looks like a good deal, you can check and see right away if it really is a good price for that item. Sometimes people assume that just because it's on sale somewhere, or it's at the dollar store, or just because it's at the warehouse club, maybe Costco or something, that it must be a good price. But that's not always the case. So you can look it up and see, okay, how much do I pay for this can of peas at Walmart? And how much would I pay for Del Monte peas at Walmart versus Great Value peas, and so on and so forth. It can also be a good idea to keep track of sale prices. What's the best sale price that you're going to see for the foods you buy? What store you see them at and when. Most stores and brands work on cycles, sale cycles. So you'll see the lowest prices for certain items at certain times of the year at certain stores. If you can recognize those patterns and recognize the rock bottom stock up price that you can expect to find for an item, with a little bit of planning, you can stock up at that rock bottom price with enough to last you until the next big sale or beyond. And then you will never pay retail price again. That also has been the start of many prepper pantries. So take that can of peas, for instance. You could also say, okay, once or twice a year or whatever it is, I know I can get that can of peas 3 for $1 at such and such a store. So you wait and stock up then. When you're comparing prices, don't forget to shop by unit pricing. Compare the unit price, meaning look at the price per ounce or the price per pound, etc., not just the price for the whole container. Most stores will list the prices this way on the shelf tag, so that makes it a little bit easier for you. But you do have to be careful to check that they're giving the price in the same unit. It doesn't help if one item gives the price per ounce and the other is giving the price per pound. Sometimes we have to do the math ourselves, but always look for that unit price. Also keep an eye on meat prices, the price per pound, and keep track of those. You should have an idea of what your cutoff price is for meats, and that means the highest price per pound that you're willing to pay for that cut of meat. So like I have a price point in my head for chicken breast, for chicken thighs, for ground meats, for ribeye steaks, and so on and so forth. I know the highest price I'm willing to pay, and I also have an idea of the lowest sale price that I can expect to see. And when I do see that price, I stock up on as much as I can afford, and I have room to store. This brings me to another important point if we're talking about saving money and cutting our grocery budget, and that is meat. Meat takes proportionally the biggest bite out of our grocery budget. So cutting down on meat consumption can cut our grocery costs pretty significantly. Try to have at least one day a week that you eat a meatless meal for supper. Now that might not sound very appetizing to some of us, but I don't mean that you have to be eating like lentil loaf or something like that, unless you like lentil loaf. A meatless meal can be as simple as just having pasta without meat in the sauce, or something like cheese ravioli. I have a great, simple, inexpensive recipe for pesto ravioli with vegetables. It's cheap to make and it doesn't have any meat, but it's still delicious and satisfying. A lentil and root vegetable stew that I used to make years ago was just as hearty and satisfying as a beef stew, but much less expensive to prepare. Think pastas, think grilled cheese and tomato soup, bean burritos or enchiladas, beans and rice, breakfast for dinner, having like pancakes, French toast, that kind of thing. There are lots of options to have a meatless meal one or more nights a week. Put your favorite meatless meals down in the comments so that we can pool our ideas together. You can also just cut down on the meat in a dish to cut down the cost a little bit without cutting out the meat entirely, especially with things like casseroles or skillet meals. Things that have a starchy base, you can cut the meat amount basically in half and you probably won't even notice. If you think you're gonna miss the full amount of meat, use some lentils to replace the missing ground beef, or chickpeas or something like that to replace chicken. You can also look into TVP to replace all or some of the hamburger in a recipe. TVP stands for texturized vegetable protein, and it's a dry product that is a meat substitute. You soak it in water and it has the texture of cooked crumbled ground beef, but it's quite a good bit cheaper. It's also shelf stable, so it is a great item to have on hand. You can even use broth or bouillon for the liquid to rehydrate it and give it even more meaty flavor. Any way you can reduce the meat in your meals is going to free up a little more money in the grocery budget. Use low-cost staples that we should be storing in abundance in our prepper pantries to stretch meals further and fill more bellies for less. Think things like rice, beans, grains, and pastas. The next few tricks for saving money in your grocery budget, I'm going to talk about 3 things at once because they all kind of go hand in hand. And these are eating at home, meal planning, and eating from your pantry, meaning your prepper pantry or your food storage. The first one is a no-brainer. If part of your food budget includes eating out and saving money is something that's necessary for you, those 2 things just don't really go hand in hand. So things like going out to lunch or dinner, grabbing your coffee at the coffee shop, or even just swinging through the drive-thru can be really, really expensive these days. And now with services like DoorDash, these convenience meals can really eat up a lot of our income if we're not careful. Meal planning can help with this because it eliminates a lot of the need or the urge to eat out because you already know what you're having for dinner or lunch and you're prepared. When you meal plan, sit down with your calendar so you can plan meals that are realistic for what you have going on each day. If you know you're going to be out late, plan a simple meal or maybe even work in a planned leftovers night. I also recommend planning a day or 2 less than you think you'll need. Don't plan a meal for every single night of the week. You'll have to figure out what works best for you, but when I plan meals for every single day of the week, we always end up either overrun with leftovers or we have a night or 2 when the kids like grab a bowl of cereal or they eat at a friend's or whatever the case may be. We never end up using all of those meals I plan. So plan light and maybe have a backup meal that you can pull into service if you need it. Besides sitting down with your calendar, also sit down with the sale flyers for your local stores. Once again, this can be done with your phone. We're going to meal plan around 2 things, and one of them is the sale flyers. But first and foremost, we're going to plan around the food you already have in your home. That's food that you don't have to pay for right now, so it's going to free up money in the budget. This is where I'm talking about starting to eat from your food storage if you don't already. Ideally, we should all be rotating all the food in our home regularly, but a lot of people don't. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people with a stash of food that they put away because they wanted to be prepared, but they just kind of stashed it and basically forgot about it. And all of a sudden they're realizing that things are past their dates and they just want to throw it away. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The most expensive food is the food you throw away. You might as well just take your money and put it right into the garbage can. So first, go through your stored food and figure out what you want or need to use up. Look at the oldest date items first. I pretty regularly have a bin or a basket with like canned goods and box foods and whatever things that I know need to be used up quickly. Cans that are dented, things that are way past date, just random things that don't really fit in my pantry. I just want to get rid of them. Things that I know I want to use up quickly. So I think about recipes to use those items. Then I shop my pantry for all the shelf-stable items that I can use in my meal plan. Look in your freezer too for packs of meats and veggies that you can use. Look to use the oldest items first. After you've shopped your pantry and your freezer, next go to the sale flyers. See what foods have the best discounts, especially meats. Plan your meals around the items you already have and the items that you can get at the best discount. I have a pretty good collection of recipes and meals my family likes that I've amassed over the years, so I can usually come up with something that I want to make with these ingredients. If not, I'll go to Pinterest or Google usually, but there are apps and websites out there that can give you recipes that you can make if you tell it the ingredients that you have to work with. A lot of people are even using like AI tools like ChatGPT to come up with meal plans and recipes based on specific ingredients. I do know even the best meal plan can go awry sometimes. So if you want to save money, be sure you have a backup plan to avoid having to go out if you get home later than you planned, or you realize you forgot to thaw your meat or plug in your crock pot or something along those lines. I think we've all had those days, right? Where you just have to kind of throw up your hands and say, okay, this dinner just is not happening. Have a few things on hand that you're willing to eat for an emergency supper, whether it's like a few cans of soup or whatever works for you. We have several tricks up our sleeve that helps us out in these situations, including meals in a bag and meals in a jar, things like that that I put together ahead of time. These meals are actually part of our emergency preparedness plan, but they're also good for dinner time emergencies just like these, when we need a super quick meal solution for dinner. And once again, eating from our prepper pantry is going to help keep things rotated and make sure that nothing goes to waste. Speaking of eating out of your prepper pantry, a really good exercise to try that will save you a lot of money is to do a spending freeze and a pantry challenge. When you challenge yourself to eat only from the food that you already have in your home for a certain period of time, whether it's a week or a month or whatever it may be, sometimes this is not as much a challenge, but a necessity. I mean, I can remember a few years ago when money was very tight for us and we had some unexpected expense come up that just put us over the edge. And I was like, okay, what do I do? All right, I guess I just won't go to the grocery store this week. I can't go to the grocery store this week. So I set out to see what meals I could make with just what we had in the house. And thankfully, because we had at that point been prepping for years and building a stockpile and doing it in a way that really made sense, we got through just fine. Some people, when they do these pantry challenges, they will allow themselves to spend like $25 a week on essentials like milk. But I think it's actually better to do without that. It's going to really help you test out your emergency preparedness and sort of find the holes in your preps, because it's a better simulation of what would actually happen in a true emergency. Can you get by just fine, or are there holes in your food storage that you need to find a way to fill? It's important to use your powdered milk, your powdered eggs, your canned butter. All of these things need to be rotated too, and you're going to get a chance to try them and ask yourself, do I like this powdered milk? Do I like the taste of these powdered eggs? If you don't, you should not be storing those. There's enough brands out there that are good that you should not settle for something that you're not going to enjoy eating. When you eat out of your pantry, whether it's a part of your weekly groceries or part of a pantry challenge, you're going to save some money on those things that you don't have to purchase for that week. That's when you can take that extra money and put it towards replacing some items on the other end, replacing the older items that you just used with some brand new items. but you're going to have a little bit more control over your purchasing now because you're not buying things that you need right away. So you can use that price book and buy low for an investment that's going to pay you back with interest. Okay, moving on. Another big way to save money on your grocery bill is to cut down on waste. Cut out waste as much as you can in your food. The amount of food that American families throw away each year is staggering. And we all know how it goes. We buy the food with the best of intentions and we just don't get to it in time. But a little conscious effort can cut down on the waste because I'll say it again, the most expensive food is the food we throw away. Use every last bit of your food. A few examples of how I do this in our home. If we have a chicken or a turkey, for instance, for dinner, of course, we're going to eat the meat and then the carcasses go in the pot and I boil that for bone broth. This bone broth is pretty much free because you already had the carcass and it can be used in soups or canned or frozen for later use. But I'm not done there. After I strain out the good broth, I will take all the rest of the solids, bones, skin, everything that's left and put it in my Instant Pot for 2 4-hour cycles. And then I puree it in my food processor and it becomes kind of a paste that my dogs and cats love as a treat, as a food topper. It's actually very nutritious and it can actually be part of a homemade pet food if you wanted it to be. It makes a ton and it uses every last bit of those birds so that nothing goes to waste. If you don't have dogs or cats, you can strip away all the meat and skin and things like that, dry the bones and pulverize them into bone meal for your garden. The same thing can be done with any kind of bones that you have. Don't throw away things like onion skins and peels from your washed veggies. Save these in a bag in your freezer and you can throw those in as well when you're making broth and stock. Although leave the onions out if you're going to be using it for your pets or put that in after you take out the pet part. Edible bits of leftover meats and veggies from your meal can also go into a container in the fridge and you can use those to make a soup once you've got enough stuff. If you have fresh fruits or berries that are starting to go by, if they're like just starting to get soft and wrinkly, but they don't have any mold on them, instead of tossing them in the garbage, put them in baggies in the freezer before they're too far gone and you can use those in smoothies. You can actually do the same with some veggies as well. I have put carrots, spinach, kale, and avocado in smoothies, to name a few. If you have milk that you are afraid is going to go by before you can use it, dump the end of the milk into a freezer container and save it up until you have enough to make a chowder. Smoothies are also a great way to use up little bits of leftover milk, yogurt, cottage cheese before they go by. You can throw those in the freezer or just throw them right in your smoothie. If you need to, keep a small dry erase board on your fridge with a running list of all the perishable items in there that you're going to need to use up or freeze before they go bad, so you just don't forget what's in your fridge. Take a look at the things that you tend to waste the most because it's different for every household. Is it things like celery, mushrooms, and spinach, or is it dairy items like milk and cheese? This is another instance where eating from your prepper pantry can help you. If you don't use enough of these items to use them up entirely before they go bad, it might make more sense to use like a little scoop of your freeze-dried or dehydrated spinach or celery rather than buying a whole bag or bunch of fresh only to end up throwing half of it away. Or make up milk a cup at a time from your powdered milk in your pantry as you need it rather than having to buy a whole gallon or a whole quart. Using just a bit of freeze-dried cheese or powdered eggs might make more sense for you if that's not something that you use often. Make good use of your leftovers as well. We actually love leftovers in our house, but I know some people don't and they're not as good at using them up. Pack them up into individual servings if that helps to use for lunches, or repurpose them into a different meal if you really don't like leftovers. Cut that meatloaf up into chunks and make it into spaghetti and meatballs, or turn that leftover roast or chicken into fried rice or a pot pie or a stew. If you know you're not going to eat the leftovers, package them individually and freeze them to save the day when you need a really quick meal and it's going to seem like a whole fresh new meal because you didn't just have it. The more we can cut down on waste, the more we can save money. But I am a realist and I do understand that even with these conscious efforts, sometimes things are going to get away from us. When that happens and you do have to throw something away, compost it if you can, or feed it to your chickens or pigs if you happen to have those. Then at least it can help grow some new fresh food and save you some money on feed or fertilizer. Bargain shopping. Keeping a price book, like I mentioned earlier, is the first step in this. And shopping sale flyers, like we did with the meal planning, is another part. Your price book is going to work hand in hand with the sale flyers so that you can double check and make sure that something is really a good price. Something might be on sale at one store, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually cheaper than, say, Walmart or Sam's Club. especially if you look at store and generic brands, which is another great way to save on the grocery budget. Sometimes when it comes to saving money, we really just need to get over ourselves. So do we really need Diet Coke or Tyson chicken or Rao's pasta sauce? Try store brands and usually you'll find that they're going to be just fine and they're going to save you some money. But on the flip side of that, sometimes you can find deals and coupons that allow you to get the name brands for even less than the store brands, which rarely go on sale or have coupons. I love it when that happens. Couponing has changed with the times. It's a lot more digital now and a lot less paper. There's several rebate apps that you can use to earn cashback rebates on food items without having to clip a single paper coupon. I have gotten many really great deals over the years, as well as lots and lots of freebies and money makers with these apps. And quite often that does mean getting name brands for less than the store brands. I'll put some of my favorite couponing and rebate apps down below in the description below the video. And if you have any that you use that I didn't list, drop them down in the comments for us. Don't forget to check out the clearance aisle or clearance rack or whatever your store has as you're shopping. I've gotten some really great grocery deals in the clearance aisle and been able to really stock up on things like canned goods. I also browse the meat and produce areas and look for those markdown stickers. That's one reason why the convenience of grocery pickup and delivery can actually kind of be a double-edged sword. It definitely saves us time. There's no question about that. And it can save us money by helping us stick to our list and avoid impulse buys. But if you don't go inside the store, you can't find all those great clearance deals. I guess in a way, buying those clearance items could be considered impulse buying. But if you buy shelf-stable items that aren't going to go bad before you can use them, only purchase items that you know you will use, and make a conscious effort to work them into your meal plans and daily use rotation, it's still a money saver in the long run. Let's look at an example. I have found Rotel, for instance, on clearance, which is something I use all the time in my cooking. It might have been a slightly different variety than what I usually buy, but nothing I can't use the same way. Let's say it was 40 cents less than what I would usually pay, and I maybe picked up a dozen cans at that price. So that just saved me $4.80. And for the next several months, whenever I need to have a can of Rotel, I'm not going to have to pay for it. That $4.80 can be put towards buying some extra items for our long-term pantry, a few cans of something else, or save all those little savings for a few weeks until you have enough to invest in something bigger, like a bulk bag of rice or wheat berries. Or it can even be put towards building an emergency fund, whatever the most pressing need is for your family at the moment. Grocery savings are usually pretty small amounts, and it doesn't seem worth it for some people. But I'm telling you, if you're truly struggling, every little bit counts. And all of those small amounts repeated over and over again for a period of time will add up before you know it. When times are tough, that may be the only way to build your prepper pantry, just a few cans or a few boxes at a time. It's definitely worth it. See if any of the places you shop online offer rewards or referral programs. That can sometimes add up to free food with or without additional purchases. A couple of my favorite places to buy bulk foods online, Azure Standard and ThriveLife, both have awesome referral programs that let me earn free food, which really helps stretch the grocery budget. For most of these programs, all you have to do is register for an account on the website, and then they give you a link to share to earn free credit to spend in that store. Often, you don't even have to make your own purchase first. I'll put a few of my favorites down below, and it's also worth checking any place that you shop online and seeing if they offer something like this. Okay, other ways to save money on your grocery bill. Look for things you can make yourself rather than buying pre-made to save some money. Bread, baking mixes, spice mixes, rice-a-roni packages, the list goes on and on. It's important, though, here to look at whether you can really save money by making it yourself. You should be able to use your price book and a little bit of basic math skills to determine if it would really be a money saver. Something like bread, simple ingredients like flour, water, and salt, you can probably make a loaf for a few cents versus what, $1.50 or more in the grocery store. But something like a rotisserie chicken, for instance, you can usually get a rotisserie chicken for around $5 or less. Remember how I mentioned I like to browse around for markdown stickers in the store? Rotisserie chickens are one of my favorite finds, and I find them pretty regularly for around $3. So if you look at roasting chickens in the store, you can't find one for that price even on sale. At least I can't where I live. And the store-made rotisserie chicken includes the seasoning and the electricity needed to roast it and all of that stuff. So you can see what I mean. It's Often cheaper to make something yourself, but not always. So do the math and make sure. The same goes for food preservation. I will say being able to preserve your own food can be a great way to save some money on your grocery bill. When you get a great deal on some meat, for instance, it can be a good idea to buy it in bulk if you can and preserve some for later. If you freeze it, be sure to take into account the efficiency of your freezer or your freezers. Pack them to run more efficiently. A freezer is more efficient when it's full, so fill any empty spaces with water jugs or something like that. Check the seal on the freezer as well. Freezers cost money to run, and that can vary greatly depending on a lot of things, like those I mentioned, as well as like the age of the freezer, the conditions it's kept in, and more. You don't want the electric bill from an inefficient freezer to eat into the savings that you got on the food you're storing inside. You can get something like a kilowatt meter to gauge what it's costing you to run your freezer or even other appliances like dehydrators or freeze dryers. Of course, if you really need to save money, it doesn't make sense to pay $30 or whatever they cost now just to find out whether or not you're using too much electricity. So luckily you can usually borrow one of these meters from your public library. So look into that. You can also consider preserving the food in ways that don't require a constant supply of electricity, such as canning. But there are a few things to take an honest look at when you think about this as well. Do you already have the equipment and supplies you need? If money's tight, you might not be able to go out and buy a canner and a supply of canning jars if you don't already have them. And if you do buy them, how much are you going to be saving for each jar that you can? And how long is it going to take to recoup that investment? You can get a simple canner fairly inexpensively, but for someone on a really tight budget, even that can be a daunting cost. The jars themselves, if you don't already have them, anywhere that I have available for me to purchase jars, they're almost always at least $1 a jar or more for brand new jars. Granted, they are reusable, so you only have to make that investment once, but consider how many times you're going to have to reuse a jar to recoup that investment. You also have to think about lids. Some people reuse their lids, but many don't because it isn't considered safe. And I will say that even if you are fine with reusing your lids, they do need to be removed very carefully because any damage to the lid, no matter how slight, usually means that it's not going to seal or it's not going to hold a seal if you do reuse it. And personally for me, that's hard to do. Sometimes I can't get it off without damaging it a little bit, even though I have a special opener. So most of us are going to have to buy a new lid every time we can a jar, no matter what. And lids are usually around 30 cents or more per lid, depending on where you get them and if you buy them in bulk or not. So you also have to consider that cost as well as the cost of the electricity or propane to run the canner and the cost of the food that you're canning. If you get a smoking deal on meat and you already have the canner in the jars, it totally makes sense to buy that meat in bulk and can it up. But if you want to can a vegetable, for instance, and let's go back to that can of peas, if you have to buy a jar for $1 plus, or even just a lid for 30 cents, and then you have to buy the peas and spend your time and your electricity doing the canning, but you know you can buy a can of peas for 30 cents or even 50 cents, you might decide it's not worth doing it yourself. There are other methods of preserving foods. Maybe you could dehydrate those peas. Do you have a dehydrator? Does your oven go low enough so that you could dehydrate it in your oven instead? You still need a way to store the peas for long term, which for most of us is going to be a glass canning jar again, and a vacuum sealer or an oxygen absorber, all of which cost money. Now, don't get me wrong, I am definitely not trying to discourage anyone from canning or dehydrating or otherwise preserving their own food. I think those are very extremely important life skills that I think everyone should have. Not to mention there's a myriad of other reasons to preserve your own food besides just saving money. To preserve the food you grow yourself, so you know what's in your food and on your food. Many, many reasons to preserve your own food. I just wanted to point out that if saving money is your number one reason, it's not always better to do it yourself, and that's okay. I just want everyone to get in the habit of breaking down the real cost of the food, just like we break down the cost of everything else when we're on a tight budget. Of course, there are ways to save money on the food preservation and make it less costly, and that brings me to my next tip for saving money. Utilize your friends, family, and community. There's lots of resources. Reach out, check your local Facebook marketplace and buy-sell trade pages and see if anyone's getting rid of jars or canners or dehydrators or any of that stuff for a cheap price. Reach out to your friends and family. I have gotten tons of canning jars and equipment, either free or very low cost over the years from family members who just got to a point in their life that they're not going to be canning anymore. They want to see their stuff go to someone who's going to use it and appreciate it. Reach out and see if you have anyone like this in your family or friends list. This can also be a way to get some food for free and save a lot on your grocery bill. Most of us know that things like canned goods are going to be good for a long, long time after those dates on the package. I can't tell you how much free food I've gotten just by letting my friends and family members know that I am willing to take food that they are getting rid of. Sometimes they're the type who just don't want anything that's past its dates, so they're cleaning out. Sometimes they've had to change their eating habits for like medical reasons or something, or they're just cleaning out for whatever reason, and I will happily take their food and work it into my pantry. If it's past dates, I'm going to put it to the front of my rotation and use it more quickly. So let people know, and just keep an eye out on Facebook. Sometimes people you know are doing a pantry clean out and they will offer it. They'll post it up on their Facebook. Look for community free groups on Facebook as well. Often there's groups where people post things that they're giving away for free. Sometimes food is posted. You may or may not feel comfortable taking food from a stranger, but there may be other things like canning jars or dehydrator or any number of other household goods. If you can find something else there that you otherwise would have had to purchase and spend money on, the money you saved on that can go towards your groceries or your preps. Another way to save money on your grocery bill, check out community groups and bulletin boards as well. Often there are free community suppers offered by various churches and different groups. At least where I live there are, and they're open to anyone. They're not like income based or anything like that. They're for the whole community. At one point in the last few years, there was at least 3 nights of the week that I knew of a free supper available in my community. So look around, ask around, and see what's available near you. That can cut down your grocery bill. Don't overlook local farms, farmers markets, farm stands, even your neighbors. Often you can find really good deals on produce, eggs, honey, and other foods, and you're also supporting a local business as well as saving money. Your neighbors might have eggs to sell, or they might even be open to bartering with you for things like that as well. Look for a local produce rescue or food rescue. There are apps like Flash Food and Too Good To Go that might be available in your area that work with grocery stores and restaurants to get food and produce that's close to its expiration into the hands of customers at reduced prices. If you're like me and you don't have any of these official services in your area, you might have something a little less structured, but just as good or even better. In my area, there's a couple of ladies who go to our local grocery store a couple of mornings a week, and they pick up boxes of produce items that are about to expire that the grocery store puts out. They bring them to a local church parking lot for anyone in the community to come and pick from. There's more than enough to go around, and they give whatever's left over to people who can feed it to their chickens and pigs and things like that. It's all free. Something like this can save a ton on the grocery bill, and you can feel good about cutting down waste in your community. One more thing I just want to mention about community resources, and that is food pantries. Most communities are going to have one or more of these. If your grocery budget is just stretched too thin, there's no shame in getting a little help if you need it. There's going to be many resources you can find by checking your community boards and groups on Facebook. Remember, a well-stocked extended pantry can save you money by reducing grocery trips and impulse buys, by allowing you to better control your purchasing, and allowing you to take advantage of sales and bulk deals. And it can really be a lifesaver in a true financial crisis or disaster. Cutting costs is smart for anyone. If you can shave just $20 a week off of your grocery budget, that's going to give you an extra $80 a month that you could put towards more food or bigger things like water filters, for example. Try just one tip from today's video this week and see how it goes. And be sure to leave your best money saving tips down in the comments so that we can all learn together as a community. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a shopping cart emoji down in the comments and watch this video next for some classic recipes from the first Great Depression. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.